Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pod Tiki Inside the Mug, another episode of Inside the Mug, where today we are inside the mug, but we're outside on the back patio because it's actually warm enough for me to sit outside this time of year, or this weekend in Nashville. It's a little rainy, a little cloudy. You can see this nice, pretty Tennessee sky behind me. Leaves are off the trees. Not my favorite time of year for that. Luckily, we're leading into the holidays, which is one of my favorite times of year, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up in Florida, but uh, the leaves falling off the trees it bums me out. It puts me in like a bad mood. It's kind of all this death and desiccation all over the place. And I know it leads into the rebirth of the trees in the spring, but it's still just kind of for the next 5 months or so. It's going to be just tree skeletons everywhere, reaching up towards the sky like even they're trying to get away. But as you can see, I'm smoking a nice Olmec by Foundation Cigar Maduro. Really good cigar. Drinking a little, what is this? George Dickel, Tennessee whiskey. So sorry this episode has been so delayed. I know I don't like to spend this much time in between the episode and the Inside the Mug, but man, the end of November going into December was just so crazy for me. My Thanksgiving, we went up to Illinois, and then came back here. My wife's birthday, shout out to Overlord in Nashville, nice little French dive bar kind of thing. We reserved the Bohemian room for my wife's birthday party, which was made us feel very fancy. They got me addicted to absinthe. Oh my gosh, I have fallen in love with absinthe. But you got to do it right, and you got to have good absinthe, and they do both there. So shout out to Mel and the guys over at Overlord. And then we had a couple of days to recoup from that, and we went up to New York City for a few days, about 3 or 4 days. And man, that was that was incredible. It had been decades since I've been back, and I grew up in Florida, but I really had a half and half growing up. All right, I was born in New York State. About an hour, 2 hours upstate from the city, a little town called Washingtonville. Actually, it was a smaller town called Rock Tavern inside Washingtonville, or beside Washingtonville. I was born in Goshen Hospital, Newburgh, Middletown, around that area. But all of my family is from the city, so we'd go back and into the city. My dad's from the Bronx, so my grandpa still lived there, so we would go back. A lot of our family was there, Queens, stuff like that. But it had been decades. And then when I was 12 or 13, we moved to Florida. So I got the kind of half and half growing up. I got to have these really cool Christmases in New York with the snow and all the decorations, cold outside, chopping wood for the fire, all of that. But the reason I say I grew up in Florida is because I really relate a lot more to Florida. At least I have up to now. Than I do to New York. I didn't grow up in the city. I didn't really, Florida was where I met all my best friends that I still talk to. Florida is where I learned how to drive, where I fell in love for the first time, where I got my first job, like where my parents' house still is, the family home that we all lived in and grew up and then came back to, and we had our own people to come home with, and it was just, it's where I got in trouble as a teenager and all that. It's where I had my first few jobs, my first real job. I owned a home there for a little while. It really was and just that Florida Caribbean lifestyle, that tropical lifestyle. I definitely vibe with that a lot more in my personality than I do with the New York lifestyle. But that doesn't mean I've forgotten it. I mean, being in the city last week, I really was able to fit right in. And I was only there for a few days, so if I know anybody in town, I'm sorry I didn't reach out. We kind of were there for some other planned reasons, and we had a busy schedule. Definitely plan on going back sooner rather than later, to kind of meet up with everybody that we know there. But um, did go to a tiki bar there. Went to Tiki Chick on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. We stayed in Chelsea, which Chelsea, I can take it or leave it. Even the Upper West Side, East Side, like, I went to a cigar lounge on the East Side. Didn't go I didn't go much further north than like the Central Park edge area, but that whole area is there's some really nice stuff in there. We got to see we went to Rockefeller Center, of course, saw the tree. Times Square, I can take it or leave it. It's a bunch of touristy bullshit. Same stores we have everywhere else. The only cool thing is that they do have some forward fashion there. You can find different stuff, but it's this walking around paying $20 for a can of beer is hell, I can do that downtown Nashville. But where I really felt a connection was in Greenwich Village and Little Italy up on Mulberry Street, which was the Italian came out of me, the New York heritage came out of me. I was walking up and down Mulberry Street, and I just got to go to Ferrara's, which is like this little pastry joint cafe that my dad used to go to when he lived up there. So that was pretty cool. Stopped in, had a glass of wine at an Italian restaurant. Got some really good cannolis, of course. Got a bunch of slices. Yeah, it just really felt it, and it was all done up for Christmas. And they had the lights kind of festooned across the street on Mulberry and Grand, and it was just really, I really felt like the Italian heritage coming out of me, man. It really felt cool. I felt right at home. And I'm pretty well traveled, so I can fit in anywhere, but I felt the connection to there. And even down in the village, it was very more like a neighborhood. I really enjoyed being down there. We were down there during the day, so we didn't get to enjoy any of the nightclubs, but my wife took me around and showed me a lot of the famous jazz clubs like Smalls and the Blue Note and all that stuff. It was really cool to see that stuff. Stopped in this really cool French bistro for some cocktails. Had some really great drinks. There was one cool spot in Chelsea that I really dug, was a bar called Oscar Wilde's. And if you know anything about Oscar Wilde, he's kind of very flamboyant kind of writer, playwright, poet. This place definitely exuded that. It was the place was immaculately decorated, very flamboyant. The cocktails came with like little flowers and stuff. It was really truly a New York style, like best of the best bartenders there. And they had that all decorated for Christmas. Man, it looked like Christmas threw up in that place. It was insane. But yeah, did hit a tiki bar, and that was really cool. Shout out to the people at Tiki Chick. Took a while for me to break that New York stereotype of that coldness and get the bartenders to open up to me a little bit and start talking about tiki. But when I did, they were all pretty cool. Had some good drinks. Nothing that really was crazy exotic. They kind of have like, it's kind of a good tiki bar to go to for beginners in tiki that don't want something like in your face. Now, I didn't get the zombie or something or forward stuff like that. I had the Mai Tai, which was a little bit of their riff. Wasn't traditional, but it was very good. And then I drank a bunch of their like signature cocktails. So I don't know how their traditional cocktails hold up, but they were all very tasty, very good. Just very, very mild in flavor for the person who might not be into those heavy, hardcore zombie style tiki drinks. They did a very good job of having a tiki bar decor in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Like, they had the big doors. It was catty corner door entrance, like on the corner, so you walk in and glass doors, and it was all painted tiki. They had actually, it was really cool. One side was exposed brick, and they painted it yellow, but it was kind of like that brindle faded brick, where it kind of looked like a side of a pineapple. It was really cool. And then once you got deeper into the bar, in the back corner, that's where you got like the real tiki vibes. They had this really cool wallpaper with like a monkey crouched down on it. It was really cool. The logo was like mermaids and stuff. It was pretty cool. I dug it. But I digress. Let's jump into this past episode of Pod Tiki. It was on the Nui Nui. Now, this is a drink that I chose. Man, I don't even remember why I chose it. I had heard about this a couple of times. I tasted it, or a version of it, at an event once, and it didn't jump out at me. But I knew the story of it. I knew how it started out as the Pupule and then became the Nui Nui. And I know it seems like I've been kind of stroking Jeff Berry lately, but until recently, I never fully dove in the cover to cover to Sippin' Safari, and I recently did, and learned the story behind deciphering the Don Beach codes. As you know, I explain all in the podcast about how Don Beach would put a lot of his mixes, syrups and whatnot, into code. Don's spices #1, Don's mixes #1, #2, Don's dashes for his bitters, and he did even mix bitters together. He made a thing called Herb Saint or Herb Stora, which is Herb Saint and Angostura. And I'm not going to go into the full story because I want you to listen to the podcast and I want you to read Jeff Berry's book, Sippin' Safari, as well. I'm not just going to sit here and tell you all the stuff that it took him decades to uncover. I'm going to let him tell you that. But I do have in the episode a few of the original recipes with the code, and then a brief story about, like a brief overview of how he uncovered the codes, and then the actual recipe that came out of it. It literally took like 10 years to find all this stuff, and a lot of it was due to meeting the either retired bartenders or their children that may have kept notebooks and things like that. And it was really only a few people that knew these recipes because he was very close. He kept these pretty close to the vest. The coding system is something very interesting to me. The actual, not just the way he did it, but the idea behind it. And I'm gonna write an article about this soon, so I don't want to go too much into it here, but I'm tossing some ideas around, like was it a good idea? Is it a good idea to maybe reinstate some of that now, especially as a time when maybe staffing is an issue and a lot of places have signature cocktails, but then again, tropicals have become so ubiquitous, and now there's a lot of home bartenders. I don't know, is it even worth it to try to hide recipes? Like, is it maybe a bit pretentious to think my recipe is so good that I gotta hide the recipe for it? I mean, back in Don the Beachcomber days, there was only like a couple of places that were serving these exotic drinks, and the way that other places would get the recipes was to poach his bartenders to come bartend for them, and so he had to really protect his recipes. But then again, you have a bunch of people trying to recreate recipes that don't know what they really were, or don't know the flavor combinations, and are just trying to make knockoff versions. And over time, those knockoff versions became just bastardized dilutions, and then you end up with the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where it's like tropical drinks all came in a pre-mixed, you have sweet and sour mix, margarita mix, literally zombie mix, Mai Tai mix, like all of these things that it became an effort of convenience or quantity over quality, and you end up actually bemoaning the genre. You end up actually denigrating the genre. I'm sorry, I was looking for a word there, but you end up denigrating the version, or the genre, and making people think these tiki drinks are just syrupy, sugary, fruity messes. And so I guess for his business it worked out for him, but for the actual genre of tiki, maybe it actually hurt it and put it into a 30-year decline that we're just now starting to climb out of. Um, but I suppose the same could be said about any genre of cocktail, right? Prohibition cocktails. You go into prohibition, people start mixing things with anything they can get their hands on to make them taste better. People start making alcohol in their bathtub, home stills, things like that. You end up with some rot gut shit that is, I mean, in some cases deadly. So maybe open sourcing your recipes is a good idea, but I think about it the same way I say, some people will say, my wife included, will say, yeah, you shouldn't be able to get everything everywhere all the time because that takes away from going to a certain place to get that thing and having that experience. Let me explain, like going and getting fresh pineapples in Hawaii or the Caribbean versus being able to go to the Kroger in Tennessee and get pineapples. Now, I believe that as a general ethical belief that everybody should have everything all the time because I believe in a rising tide raises all ships, and the ultimate, when we can stop, like, this is my socio-economic, political, religious view on across the board. Everybody should have a perfect life. The world is going to throw strife and depression and bad things at you. You don't have to worry about that. And there's always going to be struggle. But the more we can level the playing field as far as everybody being able to have everything all the time, I think that is how that allows people to, first of all, open up your mind to new things that you don't have time to think about before when you're stressing about bills and meals and things like that. And also, I don't think it takes away from going to a place and getting something there because, for one, the experience of smoking a Cuban cigar in Cuba or having a Mai Tai on Kauai or going to a certain tiki bar to have that specific drink is always going to be special. Second of all, the stuff that you get shipped is never as good as it really is. I mean, I can go up the street and get a pineapple, getting the pineapple sliced really thin on a plate as a appetizer when I went to in Vinales, Cuba, that tasted so much different. Going to the grocery store in Hawaii and seeing the pineapples there, flaxen golden with the green outside the eyes, and like they were like picturesque. They look like pineapples that got painted. You go to the store here, you're gonna get pineapples, and they might ripen up and go from green to yellow, brownish. But I had never seen pineapples the way that they are shown in paintings until I went to Hawaii. So, there's always going to be the allure of going to a place and getting that thing. And I feel like same thing with the recipes and the coding system. You can go ahead and put all the recipe out there for everybody to have. But if you've ever made a recipe out of a book and then gone to a cocktail lounge and had that same recipe, you see that it's a little bit different. And I'm not saying that, believe me, I am a big proponent that I hate bartenders putting their own spin on things. Don't put your own spin on things. Give me the best version of the classic drink that you can make. But the style of making it is what I feel like makes the difference. That's why things taste a little different. Some of the ingredients, how they make their ingredients, are they fresh? Are they purchased? Are they batched? Bartenders who could mix drinks by the old school way of counting, like you might get like an eighth of an ounce more of something or less of something, and that just the way that particular bartender makes it counts that fucking pour out. It'll alter the flavor of that drink just so. So I don't think that open sourcing the recipes is going to affect the cocktail, because you're still going to want to go get one at the bar and have that experience. On the other hand, there is something kind of cool and mysterious uh, about uh, um, codifying your drinks, right? Putting them into certain mixes and codes. Like, I can't, if I don't know, there's like, look at how much we've gotten into prohibition and speakeasy culture, right? Everybody wants to have this like cool little bar that not everybody can get into. Exclusivity will always be a selling point. So having a drink maybe that no one knows how to make would be kind of cool. The so I guess I'm up in the air. I'm gonna massage this out. I'm gonna tease this out a little bit and write about it. Speaking of writing about it, I hope you guys all checked out the last issue of Exotica Modern magazine, where you can see my article Tropiki in there. Please let me know what you guys think about it. Really love to hear your point of view. I try not to be controversial. I try to be inclusive, but my writing style is a little bit acerbic. I try not to be abrasive, but I do like to be sarcastic, so I hope people don't mind that. The next thing would be, let me see. Oh, the last thing I wanted to touch on was that I did try the original recipe of the Nui Nui, which was the pupule. It's basically the same. The main difference, I think there's a couple of small amount differences in the syrups, but the main difference is there's an extra ounce of rum in there. Now, just like tiki drinks used to get a bad rap for being sugary and sweet, I think we're kind of getting a rap right now for being overly alcoholic. The extra ounce of rum, first of all, didn't really change the flavor of the drink that much, and I was using pretty good rum, so I still liked it, but it brought a little bit of the rum too forward and didn't really balance it right. I can see why Jeff Berry took the ounce off. It probably wasn't in there to begin with, or maybe he was using originally either a stronger syrups or less, a different kind of rum that, a different brand that maybe wasn't. So, I don't know, but it just seems like in a cocktail the Nui Nui is a very refreshing cocktail, and I know I say this all the time about loving drinks, but this is definitely going to be, especially come springtime and next summer, this is going to be like a back patio sipping cocktail, like in a nice tumbler or a Collins glass. I might even make a batch of this to have. But so this is a very good exotic but summery fruity drink, and having 3 ounces of rum per pour seems to me a bit of overkill. Like, I don't know why tiki has gotten this rap of everything has to be overproof and super alcoholic. I mean, yeah, there's the Mai Tais and the zombies and things like that, but not every cocktail has to be so like, I want to sit down and have more than one. I feel the same way about it like I do with overproof rums. Like, I don't want to be hammered off of one drink. There's no need to have that much rum in one cocktail. You're taking away from the balance of that drink, I believe. And I don't know, I guess maybe some people that only want to sit and have one, that, if you want to walk out and have a nice buzz going after one cocktail, but maybe tiki bars out there can will start doing, maybe actually, maybe this falls on the patron. Maybe it's time to start sharing drinks with, like, your significant other, right? I know people have started doing that with food a lot, because here in America, all the portions for everything are freaking way double what they would be in a normal portion. So I know a lot of people, myself included, my wife will a lot of times will just order appetizers and share a plate. And that's, the people are getting the same tip. It doesn't matter, but there's because the portion's just way too big. So maybe tiki bars might want to start doing that. Maybe it's time for couples to go in and start ordering a zombie and sharing it. I don't know, but I guess what I was saying was, this particular cocktail, you don't need that extra ounce of rum. It's way creamy and way more like fruity, apricot rich. If you just put the 2 ounces in there, use a good rum though. I use Cruzan single barrel. Even the regular Cruzan is good, but the single barrel is like has this butterscotch creaminess to it that's just so good. In fact, the place I usually get it was out last time I went, but anytime I see that, I will get a bottle. It's like $30, and it's so good. You can put it in cocktails, you can sip on it. Dang, it's so good. I can't wait to get another bottle of that. But yeah, so that's it for this episode. Make sure you follow Pod Tiki. Like and subscribe to this. And the more subscribers I get, the more I can start doing live stuff. Follow at pod_tiki on Instagram. That's where I post most of the updates on stuff. You can follow me at rum_poet. That's more of my personal stuff and cigar picks and stuff like that. Some non-tiki booze stuff. You can always follow Pod Tiki on Facebook, and of course the podcast, which is the main product, is always at podtiki.com. All the archives are on there. Also, the recipe index is on there if you just want to find out the recipe. But the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher Radio. So pretty much, go out there and keep it tiki, and I will see you guys next month with a little special Christmas episode. And then we're going to go into the winter months with maybe some winter cocktails, and I'm really looking forward. There's not a lot that gets me through the winter months. I don't like January, February. March is like, all right, we got St. Patrick's Day, but I really disdain January and February. It's cold and gray, and everything is dead, and I don't even feel like drinking. That's when I usually go to my sipping rums and bourbons. But I have a couple of things planned to get me through Pod Tiki, to get Pod Tiki through the winter. So keep up on that. Looking for some more interviews. People have been reaching out to, kind of falling through on me. I'm gonna keep on trying to get. I got a lot of people that I want to interview that just haven't been able to make it work. But more of that coming. So please keep messaging and commenting and liking and subscribing. And you're tired of hearing the gimmick by now. If you like what we're doing here, if you want to reach out with ideas, probably Instagram messages is the best way to get a hold of me. Slide up in my DMs, baby. All right, keep it tiki.